Hello, it's Francis.
And this is Laura.
Sight for Wight news for Friday the 28th of February 2020. Tuesday the 3rd of March, the swimming group is swimming at the Waterside Pool in Ryde from 8 p.m. till 8:45 p.m. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call Sight for Wight first to notify us of your swimming ability. You need to register with the office at Millbrook House first to be able to swim with the group.
Wednesday the 4th of March. The weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House from 10 a.m. till 11:30 a.m. There will also be our low vision drop-in between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. This is a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at Sight for Wight without the need for an appointment. We will be attending the Independent Arts Sing-About session at St Mark's Church Hall in Wootton. The session runs from 2 till 4 p.m. It is free to attend and refreshments are provided. However, voluntary donations to independent arts are appreciated. Minibus transport may be available depending on location and costs £2. If you would like to join the Sing About group, then please call us on 522205.
Thursday the 5th of March, there will be a coffee morning at the Old Smithy coffee shop in God's Hill between 10:30 a.m. and 11:45 a.m. Our coffee mornings are run by staff and volunteers from Sight for Wight and are open to all. Refreshments including delicious fresh cakes are available to purchase direct from the coffee shop. The Thursday social group are meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. Most Thursdays, with the help of volunteers, the group enjoy a number of activities, crosswords, catching up on news and trivia, knitting and crochet. They are currently making pom-poms for the rug. This very friendly mixed group also love to chat and enjoy lunch together. Later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group on different topics. If you would like to join the group, then please contact us on 522205.
Any other news? Dress for Less is looking for an assistant manager for Saturdays only, 6.5 hours per week, £8.72 per hour, at our dress agency, St James Street, Newport. Dress for Less is a 50-50 dress agency and boutique specialising in high-end ladies' fashion and occasion wear. Do you have the passion and personality to lead our team of Saturday volunteers? Your hard work and dedication will directly help the people of Sight for Wight. For an informal chat prior to applying, please contact Retail Manager Debbie at Dress for Less, St James's Street, Newport, on 523197. Job description and application forms are available from our website www.iwsb.org.uk or from the boutique. Please note CVs will not be accepted. Post or email applications to Miriam Tong, CEO, Sight for Wight, Millbrook House, 137 Carisbrooke Road, Newport, Isle of Wight, or email to ceo@iwsb.org.uk. The closing date is the 16th of March 2020. Interviews will be held the afternoon of Saturday the 21st of March 2020.
Southern Vectis visit. On March the 11th, Richard Tildesley, General Manager at Southern Vectis, will be joining us at the Wednesday coffee morning at Millbrook House to speak to us about the Southern Vectis service and to answer any questions members may have. This will be from 10 a.m. For further details, please contact us on 522205 or email members at iwsb.org.uk.
Oxite produces patented smart glasses that address visual impairment and will be at Langard Manor Road, Shanklin, Isle of Wight, on Monday the 9th of March from 12 p.m. until 4 p.m. and Tuesday the 10th of March from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. They say, "Do you have tunnel vision? Then come and see us." Yes, actually come and see us. We understand everyone's eye condition is different, but if our glasses suit your eyes, then the experience will be an eye-opener. With Oxite glasses, you'll be able to see much more of the world around you, so you can enjoy social situations, exhibitions, read books, watch cinema, TV. If we can see you, we'll help you to see us. The event is free, so call 01865 580 255 or email care@oxite.co.uk to book a demonstration.
Sight for Wight is holding a low vision exhibition at New Close Cricket Ground, Blackwater Road, Newport, on Saturday the 21st of March, 10:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. This is a free event with a large car park, disabled access and facilities, and refreshments available to purchase from the bar. Join us to meet with exhibitors and support services including Laura Gouliard, St Mary's ECLO, Associated Optical, Dolphin Speech Software, Humanware, the Macular Society, Optelec, Professional Vision Services, Sight and Sound Technology, Touchpoint Vision, the Sensory Support Team, and the Windermere Manor Hotels. We will also be joined by Terry from the RNIB Tech Squad. He will be able to answer your tech-related questions, help set up your own devices, and will be demonstrated the Amazon Alexa speech recognition devices. Southern Vectis routes 2 and 3 stop just outside the venue. However, as the road is a busy main road, we are offering a shuttle minibus service to and from Newport Bus Station. This will run at set times throughout the day. Please ring 522205 for more information and to book a space.
Coronavirus. Whilst there have been no cases of the coronavirus identified on the Isle of Wight at present, with the steady spread of the coronavirus infection across Europe and with a number of isolated reports in the UK involving those who have recently travelled to places where cases have been confirmed, it seems timely to refer to the NHS and Public Health England advice on how to limit the spread not just of the coronavirus, but common flu viruses and the common cold. Like the common cold and flu, coronavirus infection usually occurs through close contact with an infected person via coughs and sneezes or hand contact. A person can also be infected by touching contaminated surfaces if they do not wash their hands. The risk of being in close contact with a person with coronavirus or contaminated surfaces is very low at the current time, with those suspected of carrying the virus being kept in isolation. However, to protect yourself and others from the common cold, flu or coronavirus, you are advised to always carry tissues with you and use them to catch your cough or sneeze. Then bin the tissue and wash your hands or use a sanitizer gel. Wash your hands often with soap and water, especially after using public transport. Use a sanitizer gel if soap and water are not available. Avoid touching your eyes, nose and mouth with unwashed hands. Avoid close contact with people who are unwell. At Millbrook House, at Dress for Less, on our minibus and at outreach events, we are attending as a matter of routine hygienic practices. Sanitizer and hand gel will be readily available for use. You can find the latest information and advice from Public Health England at www.gov.uk/coronavirus.
Pre-owned equipment for sale. We have been asked to advertise on behalf of a member a pre-loved Braille Pen 12 Touch. This is a Bluetooth Braille keyboard with Braille display designed for use by individuals who are blind or have low vision. This keyboard connects to a phone, netbook, PC or tablet. It allows the user to navigate an external device with a joystick, write SMS, browse the internet, complete 6-key entry into a Braille translator, or simply type. The user can also switch between 6-dot and 8-dot Braille entries. The asking price is £100. If you are interested in purchasing this item or require more information, please call 522205 and ask for Laura.
Accessible Activities and Services Day will be held at Wight Sports and Community Centre on Saturday, March the 14th, 10:30 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. All are welcome and admission is free of charge. For further details, please phone the Wight Sports and Community Centre on 752168 or email info@westwight.org.uk.
This week's In Touch. Accessible transport, macular disease, and would you want your sight restored? Investment to make transport accessible and a new BBC TV drama explores what it would be like to have your sight restored. The government has launched its plans to make the UK a world leader in accessible travel. Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, tells us what the investment will achieve. We hear from Professor Paul Bishop from the University of Manchester about new developments that may help people with macular disease, which is the biggest cause of blindness in the UK. And what would it be like to have your sight restored? Blind playwright Mandy Redvers Rowe talks about her new BBC drama, Second Sight.
And this is the headline for Friday the 28th of February. Recipe for disaster. Coroner slams council over dementia patient's death fall. Information on an elderly man's dementia was intentionally withheld by the Isle of Wight Council to ensure he was given a place in the care home in which he fell to his death. That was the conclusion of Isle of Wight coroner Caroline Summeray, who described the circumstances surrounding the death of Frederick Joe Sheath at Fallowfields Care Home in Ryde as a recipe for disaster. At the time of his death in 2015, the county press ran a blistering front-page story, quoting Mr. Sheath's daughter, Jacqueline Delamo, as saying the council had blood on its hands. 5 years on, a 5-day inquest last week heard Mr. Sheath had only recently moved from the Holmdale House care home in Haven Street after serious concerns about that home were raised by Watchdog, the Care Quality Commission. Following the inquest, the county press asked the council to comment, but it declined, pending a review. Mr. Sheath suffered with severe dementia and as a result was prone to wandering in the night, a fact known to staff at Holmdale but not at Fallowfields. His wandering had been featured in documents made during his stay at Holmdale, but during his move in 2015, these were not shared with staff at Fallowfields. The inquest into the death of Frederick Sheath heard how, on the morning of March the 19th, 2015, staff at Fallowfields discovered Mr. Sheath lying unconscious at the foot of a set of steps leading from a fire escape at the rear of the property. A nurse working the night shift prior to Mr. Sheath's fall helped take him to the toilet, but only 2 people were on shift that night and she was called away to assist with another job. Mrs. Summeray said, after that she made her way to the dining room to clear away the dining room, forgetting about Mr. Sheath. a serious lapse in judgment from a carer of 22 years. At around 8 a.m, staff discovered Mr. Sheath tangled in his Zimmer frame at the foot of the stairs leading away from the home. He had wandered out of the toilet and into another patient's room. From there he saw the fire escape and walked through it. In 2014, the CQC deemed Holmdale House as inadequate, prompting the council to pull all future placements with the home. Mrs. Summeray said, "When representatives of the council visited Holmdale after it was closed, they found huge amounts of documents pertaining to patients that had been left unsecured and out in the open. Had Carol Montague, the owner of Fallowfields, been made aware some documents were inadequate, she may have made further inquiries. It is noted Miss Montague has been very forthright in her dealings with this inquest. We have seen that a 2014 document entitled All About Me detailed Mr. Sheath's propensity to wander. The council had this document and it wasn't disclosed to anyone. This was a recipe for disaster. I am confident he would not have been offered a place at Fallowfields had the nature of his issues been properly disclosed. I conclude Mr. Sheath's behaviour was intentionally left out of details given to Fallowfields by the council on the assumption that they would accept him. This rush was relevant to the pressure on social services to get him into a home. The inquest heard how the Isle of Wight Council has now updated its contract with care homes, compelling them to provide 6 months' notice before they are able to close a care home. Mrs. Summeray concluded Frederick Sheath died as a result of an accident stemming from a traumatic head injury.
Isle of Wight Council Budget 2020 to 21. How will this year's budget affect you? The Isle of Wight Council approved a 3.99% council tax rise in its full council meeting on Wednesday, approving 7% cuts, efficiency savings and income generation plans to bridge a £4.5 million cash gap. The rise in council tax will see £1.09 added to a Band C property bill each week. Some of the main changes from the Conservative administration include more than £1 million worth of savings to be found from care packages provided by the Council's adult social care. £6.2 million will be added to the children's services and adult social care budgets. Sandown's Broadway Centre will be refurbished, costing £820,000, including replacing the lift. Home to school transport will face a reduced service with fewer buses and potentially merging routes to save £321,000. Maintenance work in parks and cemeteries will be cut back, with parish and town councils choosing whether to top up services. Beach cleaning is scaled back to once a week during the year, except in school holidays when it will be daily. The price of swimming lessons will increase along with other leisure fees and charges to generate more than £58,000. A booking fee of £1 will be introduced for all theatre tickets purchased, bringing in an estimated £10,000. The Green Garden waste collection costs will increase by £12. Pay and display charges in long and short stay car parks will increase, raising £275,000. A single parking permit will allow 24-hour parking in long stay and up to 2 hours in a short stay car park for £600 per year, almost doubling what some permit holders pay now, which is £324.50. Crematorium and burial costs will rise by 7%. £289,000 will go towards tackling rough sleeping. Building control fees increase by 10%. Fewer new books will be purchased, saving £15,000.
Unauthorised absences drop, but fines income is up. The Isle of Wight Council received more than £100,000 last year from fining parents and carers whose children had unauthorised absences. In 2018 to 19, 97 cases went to court because parents and carers failed to pay the £120 fine in 28 days. A Freedom of Information request by the Knowledge Academy found the council received £105,420 from fines paid before and after the 28 days. In the previous year, 2,030 truancy penalty notices were given to parents and carers of students, compared to 1,920 in 2018 to 19. Fines for a child skipping school without authorisation start at £60, but rise if they are not paid within 21 days, and parents can face a £1,000 fine in court. A total of 211 people failed to pay the fine in 21 days in 2018 to 19, compared to 229 the year before. An Isle of Wight Council spokesman said, "We are committed to securing high attendance from all pupils and take our statutory responsibility in this area very seriously. The local authority issues penalty notices on behalf of head teachers, and it is a head teacher's decision as to whether to authorise term time leave. The law allows them to do so if they deem it to be in exceptional circumstances. The council is not allowed to make any profit from fine income. The proceeds contribute to the legal costs of issuing penalty notices and other work related to promoting good school attendance. The DfE has issued guidance on attendance, and the Isle of Wight Council has a statutory duty to implement it in full. The council recognises that regular attendance at school is essential for pupils' learning and attainment and creates more opportunities for their future. We continue to urge parents to ensure that their children maintain a high level of school attendance."
Ride Musician app to help tinnitus sufferers. A new app has been released by a musician from Ride to help people who suffer from tinnitus. T- is a sound therapy app to help people with the condition that causes a persistent internal noise within the ear. It has been created by Rupert Brown to help relieve symptoms in different ways. Rupert has spent more than 30 years collecting a music library designed to suit people seeking relief after getting tinnitus in his early 20s. He has worked with Cher and the Lighthouse family during his time as a percussionist. The T- app was developed by a team of audiologists and ENT consultants. T- app is available to download on Apple devices, with an Android version set for launch later this year. More information can be found at t-info.
Grants boost for 3 Isle of Wight lifeboats. New government funds have been granted to the Isle of Wight's independent lifeboats. Freshwater Independent Lifeboat received £62,000 from the Department for Transport. The grant will fund primary equipment and power plant renewal, but the crew will also benefit from new dry suits. Ground crews have also been given new waterproof overalls, safety boots and high-vis jackets. The grant also covered a defibrillator for the D-class lifeboat and a folding stretcher. Rod Adams, principal fundraiser, said, "The grant is really important to us as it helps us with essential equipment renewal, whereas our normal fundraising supports the day-to-day running costs throughout the year." Sandown and Shanklin Independent Lifeboat received £15,116. The grant will help it modify the new Atlantic 75 boat, currently under construction. It will also buy life jackets, dry suits, man overboard system, radios and a rescue float. Mark Birch, operations manager, said, "The station is very grateful to the DFT for once again recognising the vital work our volunteer lifeboat crew carry out." Ride Shore Rescue received £31,000 worth of funding. It will buy a new defibrillator and oxygen bottle for when responding to calls, whilst keeping one in the station. The rest will help replace its RR2 4-metre rib, which the crew bought second-hand 7 years ago, with a new 4.8-metre rib.
Freshwater Bookshop on awards shortlist. An Isle of Wight bookshop is celebrating being shortlisted for a national award and the chance to win £5,000. Freshwater's Mrs. Middleton's shop and the Rabbit Hole opened 5 years ago and is hoping to be crowned this year's Best Independent Bookshop at the British Book Awards. It's the second year that the shop will compete in the South East region against 7 other stores before vying for the overall prize. The British Book Awards ceremony takes place at London's Grosvenor House Hotel on May the 18th.
Quarter of NHS staff abused by patients. More than 1 in 4 staff across the Isle of Wight NHS have experienced abuse by patients in the last 12 months. The statistics were released as Government Health Secretary Matt Hancock announced new measures to protect workers. Results from the 2019 NHS staff survey revealed dramatic levels of health workers have suffered from abuse, bullying or harassment directed towards them by patients or service users and other members of the public while doing their jobs. Of ambulance staff at the Isle of Wight NHS Trust who answered the survey, 57% of disabled and 28.8% of non-disabled staff said they had experienced issues, a 10% increase of incidents against disabled staff compared to 2018. Currently, medical staff can refuse to treat verbally aggressive or physically violent patients, but this will extend to include homophobia, sexism or racism. In the community sector, nearly 30% of non-disabled and 53.3% of disabled staff met with problems. Staff in the mental health area also faced harassment, bullying or abuse, with 45.5% of non-disabled and 38.9% of disabled staff experiencing incidents. In the acute sector, 32.6% of disabled and 28% of non-disabled staff experienced harassment. A spokesperson for the Isle of Wight NHS Trust said, "Bullying, harassment and abuse of NHS staff is totally unacceptable, and we will take all the necessary steps to ensure people are safe and supported at work. Our staff work extremely hard in often challenging roles, and they deserve to be treated with respect."
Historian recognised for her expertise on the Isle of Wight. Well-known Isle of Wight historian Joanna Jones has been recognised for her work in her field. The Historical Association has honoured Joanna, a resident of the Elms Nursing Home in Bembridge, for her lifelong commitment to researching and promoting the social history of the Isle of Wight. Joanna Jones, who was married to Dr. Jack Jones, the late curator of Carisbrooke Castle Museum, has received an honorary fellowship from the association. As she was unable to travel to London to receive her award, it was presented by Ken Hicks, president of the Isle of Wight branch. A resident at the Elms since January 2019, Joanna recently celebrated her 88th birthday. Joanna, who was the immediate past president of the Islands Historical Association until her retirement, lectured on local history for the Workers' Education Association. She is also the author of several island history books. Born in Llandudno in Wales, Joanna met Jack when they were both working for the Liberal Party. They married when she was 21 and moved to the Isle of Wight when Jack became the curator of Carisbrooke Castle Museum. They lived in the governor's house within the castle. Joanna studied history and English at Southampton University and was awarded a master's degree. In addition to her evening class courses in local history, she also contributed to the lecture programme of the Isle of Wight branch of the Historical Association. Her proudest moment, she said, was her education, which gave her the opportunity to study for a degree at Southampton University. The fellowship was a complete surprise to Joanna, who celebrated her award with the officers of the Isle of Wight branch and the staff at the Elms. Leslie Wise, General Manager of the Elms, said, "We are extremely happy and proud for Joanna in her achievements." Ken Hicks said he was delighted to present the Historical Association Fellowship and could not think of a more deserving recipient. He said, "This award recognises, albeit in only a small way, the tremendous contribution Joanna has made in sharing the history of the Isle of Wight."
Wolverton Manor Garden Fair is set to be the best yet. Celebrating its 21st anniversary, this year's Wolverton Manor Garden Fair will take place on September the 5th and 6th and promises to be the best yet. Exhibitor bookings are coming in thick and fast, with all indoor stalls taken, with a waiting list only, and just a few outdoor pitches left. There will be a variety of specialist island and mainland garden nursery stalls displaying a diverse and inspiring range of plants, flowers, gardenalia and arts and crafts. The Elizabethan reenactors will bring music and dance, cooking and crafts from the past back to life. There will be dog shows, wildlife and conservation experts, alpacas, bats and donkeys, poultry exhibits, wood carving, traditional wool spinning, archery, falconry displays, kayaking on the moat, tree climbing, vintage and military vehicles, vintage fairground amusements, magic shows, live music on Sunday, and lots more. There will also be the opportunity to meet the Isle of Wight Observer team and hear about future plans for the island's locally owned newspaper. Free parking and a variety of refreshments make this an all-day, one-stop event. Last year, £25,000 was raised for Age UK Isle of Wight, and donations were made to other island charities, the Food Bank, Cow Sea Scouts, Second Cow Sea Scouts, White Brady Bunch, Care in the Garden and the Salvation Army. Visitors over the weekend neared 7,000. Tickets will be on sale soon, £5 in advance and £7 on the gate, with children under 14 having free entry. Both exhibitors and visitors can be assured they will have a great time.
Isle of Wight businessman's star-studded concert. A West Wight businessman who has raised millions of pounds for charity is organising a star-studded concert in London to build a new hospital. John Corcott hosts the annual Towers Party in Yarmouth, which has raised more than £1 million for charity. It is just one of the many events the entrepreneur has organised, and now he has the backing of music legends Tom Jones, Eric Clapton, Mick Hucknall, Van Morrison, John Ilsley, Paul Young and many others at the O2 event on March the 3rd. Money raised will go towards the £70 million cost of building a new cancer hospital, which will be a sister hospital to the Royal Marsden. John, who is executive producer on the project, said, "We have the land on which the hospital will be built, and we've already raised £59 million. This concert with a full house will raise another £2 million and will give us the extra push. We have sold 8,500 tickets, and there are another 5,000 plus to sell, but we're getting there." Tickets for the concert are available from bookingsdirect.com, ticketmaster.com and royalmarsden.org/concert.
HSBC to stay in Newport. It appears Newport's branch of HSBC has been spared the axe, as the High Street Bank has announced a further 27 branch closures, as it cannot ignore changes in the way that people are doing their banking. Following the latest round of closures, there will be 594 branches remaining across the UK.
Teenager admits barn aunt's arson. A teenager admitted burning down a barn, causing £150,000 worth of damage at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Monday. Thomas Raftery, 19, of Pool Lane, Bournemouth, pleaded guilty to arson, which resulted in a barn at Gatehouse Road Farm, Upton, near Ryde, packed with hay bales, go up in flames last August. A 16-year-old co-defendant was cleared of any wrongdoing. The court heard how the farm lost 3 barns in the fire, which raged for 16 hours. Tim Compton, prosecuted, said, "Evidence shows Mr. Raftery actually set 2 fires. One, the 16-year-old defendant managed to extinguish. As a result of this, we offer no evidence for them." Raftery will be sentenced on March the 26th.
End-of-life care unit opens at St Mary's. Isle of Wight NHS Trust has opened a new 3-bed end-of-life care unit to help support people as they approach the end of their lives. The Trust announced the new nurse-led Wello unit as part of its commitment to improve acute or hospital-based services. It has been opened on a 12-week pilot basis with the potential for it to become a permanent addition to St Mary's Hospital. Alice Webster, Nursing Director at Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said, "This is a really welcome addition to St Mary's Hospital. Supporting people as they enter the final days and hours of their lives is such a vital thing, and this new unit will give them the space and quiet they need. It will also provide a much more peaceful environment for their friends and family. Our end-of-life care service has improved a huge amount in the last couple of years, and the Care Quality Commission found examples of outstanding practice. Opening Wello Unit shows our commitment to continue to improve our services and to support our island community."
Sandown Seafront Loos revamp plan. A busy stretch of Isle of Wight seafront could see a new restaurant and public toilets if planning permission is granted. Sandown Seafront could be given a new lease of life as the Isle of Wight Council has submitted a planning application to itself to partially tear down the public toilets and make way for a new retail unit, Ocean Bay Beach Shop and Cafe. It is also thought 5 full-time and 10 part-time jobs could be created with the development. The scheme to rejuvenate and completely renovate the toilets is part of the Council's Eastern Bay Regeneration Plan. A separate set of unisex public toilets with changing facilities will be built to the side of the new commercial property where food kiosk, Only Foods and Sauces used to stand. The area opposite the entrance to Sandown Pier will include a terrace for the new food and drink outlet overlooking the sandy beaches. In the design and access statement, the plans to rejuvenate the seafront are called an opportunity to revitalise a critical urban space within the heart of Sandown. It also says it will create a new functional space of simple yet high-quality design. Comments can be made until March the 13th.
Wet weather leads to changing landscape. The Isle of Wight has had a soaking in recent weeks, leading to wet roads, flooded fields and cliff falls. Photographer Trudy Wilson captured fantastic images of a cliff fall in Shanklin on Tuesday, which took a tree with it. She witnessed the dramatic landslip from a safe distance, but said the noise and impact was quite something, and warned people to take extra care while walking along the esplanade or near the foot of the cliffs. She said, I want to raise awareness of the danger of cliffs, especially this time of the year with all the recent storms.
Victoria and Bea turning the heads in East Cowes. A striking cat mural created by street artist and local resident Tony Trowbridge is attracting plenty of attention at Weaver Brothers' new Link Road premises. Councillor Carl Love posted on Facebook in December, "I have just spotted this latest addition to East Cowes wall art. I think Pink Puss looks great and wonder what Puss's name might be. It certainly brings a bit of interest and colour to the area." His comment gave Weaver Brothers the inspiration to run a competition to name their new feline. 2 names proved initially popular, Victoria and Garfield, so an online poll was organised. Nearly 300 people voted with Victoria, attracting 66% of the votes. Richard Weaver said, "I was really impressed with Tony Trowbridge's artworks at Sandown Zoo and thought an animal painted on the wall of our new branch would brighten the area up. We eventually settled on a cat watching a bee, and people seemed to be really taken with her. The most famous East Cowes resident was, of course, Victoria, and her daughter was Beatrice, so we have named the bee in her honour, Bea." Weaver Brothers have also made donations to the Isle of Wight branch of the Cats Protection League, and Andy Marshall, who volunteers with a number of cat charities, including Feline Welfare Isle of Wight. The winner of the competition to name Victoria is Cara Logan of East Cowes. Her name was drawn at random from all the entries, and she will be presented with a personalised Emma Bridgewater cat mug.
Right, that's goodbye from Laura.
And goodbye from Francis.
Hello, I'm Chris.
And I'm Megan.
And we are reading features and letters from the County Press and Isle of Wight Observer.
And a letter here from Jane Clutterbuck, Knighton. I'm a volunteer at the Community Library in Knighton. This morning we have put out for recycling 70 copies of the Isle of Wight Council's latest Waste and Recycling Customer Survey, as the closing date for completion has passed. This hefty document, 8 A4 pages, has been available for some months and a number have been taken away, but people have been put off as it had to be returned to the County Hall by post. I would have been more satisfied with my waste collection service if a little more thought had been paid to producing a realistic number of these survey documents and avoiding the rather sad wastage.
Chopper Backup from Edward Lyon of Sandown. With the tragic death of Paul Whitehouse in the County Press 7th of February 2020 and the operational difficulty of the air ambulance, why on earth can't the RAF, Army, Fleet Air Arm or Coast Guard helicopters be fitted out as air ambulances, if they are not already, and at least be there as backup?
Now from James Alloway, Newport. Dear Editor, Debbie Tan is right on the button when she says the Environment Bill needs more teeth to help restore our countryside. But it also needs to perform a whole set of extractions, mainly of the people fast destroying it. Make no mistake, the human footprint is chiefly to blame for most of the problems faced by our natural landscape. Yet here on the island and elsewhere, the National Trust, which was formed 125 years ago to preserve our wild places, not our stately homes, has lately embarked on a major drive that will only increase the damage. Its overtly commercial policy to attract ever more casual visitors, described as unwelcome by the deputy leader of the Isle of Wight Council, Stuart Hutchinson, whose ward embraces the bulk of our own open spaces, will result in meltdown if allowed to proceed unchecked. This is already happening at Newtown, our sole National Nature Reserve, where numbers have grown exponentially since it took over management in the 1990s. It is hard to follow the logic in this. They bring in no extra revenue, and the oft-repeated claim that more punters will lead to greater understanding and so help preservation has been shown to be fallacious. These last chance tourists only serve to hasten the decline.
After Brexit, we need to value service sector. From Simon de Bell of Whitwell. Listening to the news this week, as the government plan to stop non-British people from working in the hospitality, retail and care industries, it is obvious that pubs, restaurants, care homes and shops will struggle to continue to offer their services as they do at the moment. I may be proved wrong. It may be that there are hundreds of thousands of people living in this country who are just waiting for all the vacancies to be advertised so they can walk into a job as a retail assistant, cafe or pub waitress, kitchen worker or social care assistant. However, when governments start calling industry sectors as low-skilled, then that government has got their employment strategy very wrong. Carers, waiters, chefs and retail assistants all require skills that cannot be in any way described as low. Anyone who says otherwise has never worked successfully in any of those sectors. I started my employment training as a retail assistant, then continued my training as a catering assistant in a wimpy bar before moving into retail management. The skills I learnt working in these jobs, what some people call Mickey Mouse jobs, were amongst the most important skills I gained during my working life. Whether we believe in free movement of people across our borders or not, we are going to have to learn valuing our service sector will be key to a successful future for both employers and employees.
And from Hazel Wild from Freshwater, entitled Where Has All the Respect Gone? She writes, Dear Editor, idly flicking through television channels one afternoon, I chanced upon a documentary on women who are afraid of their children. Watching, I sat in horror and disbelief. A 14-year-old who physically assaulted her mother, an even younger child allowed to run riot in a restaurant. I was taught to sit up at table and respond politely to the waitress who brought your meal and to say thank you for any service performed. As a woman of 84 summers, am I out of touch with the young? But I truly believe it's not the children who have failed, but us. One of my granddaughters is a primary school teacher. She told me it's quite common for children to start school not trained to use the toilet. Unbelievable. Sadly gone are the days when you stood up as a teacher, came into the room, and when you would not dare to go home and say you had been in trouble at school. You were well aware this was nothing to compete with the trouble you would be in at home. Or when a policeman could clip your ear, which once happened to me, along with my 6-year-old cousin, when we were caught red-handed, maybe I should say apple-handed, climbing over an orchard wall. I know where you live, he yelled, thus sending me home fearful, worried about my grandmother would react to my bringing shame to her door, everyone's reaction if a policeman was seen on the doorstep. Now, of course, police officers are scared of the repercussions to do any such thing. Today they would be in court. Teachers are too scared to chastise because they fear parents appearing in school the next day bringing threats of dismissal. Admittedly, I did not have to deal with iPads and mobile phones. I retired from fostering at 80, but at the tail end of those days, computers were allowed for only a couple of hours a day, downstairs in full view, never in bedrooms. Facebook, over 16s only, as well as ear piercing. Before you pity my poor foster children, many of them still see me as nanny and know if they're in trouble, I am there for them still. Yes, it was strict, but consistent. Children, above all, need consistency. Maybe we need to start asking ourselves, if we are turning out tomorrow's citizens, what kind of people will they be?
Time for a Ryde Beach rethink, writes R. Payne of Ryde. I was pleased to read in the Isle of Wight Observer 2 weeks ago, February the 14th, that the planned dog ban on even more island beaches has been scrapped. This is great news for those of us who like to take our dogs for a swim in the summer. I just wondered if the council could extend this common sense decision and not allocate the same section of Ryde Beach which they allow us to take our dogs onto the youth football event. It seems ludicrous that the adjoining section of beach, which is equally flat and sandy, is empty, while the young footballers are playing on a beach where dogs are walked daily and where they are likely to run through or fall on the mess left by the 10% of owners who don't pick up. It also means nervous dogs cannot be walked on the beach during the weeks when the football events are on.
And now we come on to the column My View, and this is by Jonathan Young, and it's entitled Target Bad Dog Owners, Not Man's Best Friend. The Isle of Wight Council, after a bit of a false start before Christmas, has now finally fired the starting gun on its Public Space Protection Orders, PSPOs, consultation. These are the orders which, among other things, replace control orders banning dogs from some beaches and stipulate where pets must be kept on leads. Cue an intemperate debate, with opinion divided firmly between those more or less enamoured of man's best friend and expressions of disgust at, for example, some pets' byproducts, frequently unfit to print. There is in fact no such thing as a bad dog, only bad owners. The law doesn't properly recognise this and needs an overhaul, and I speak as a dog person. Some breeds bite people more readily than others, but in all cases they bite people because their owners fail to train them properly and or control them properly. In Gatcombe, a terrier bit someone and was ordered to be put down because its owner, far from controlling it properly, had exercised it with the Isle of Wight hunt, with which he held a senior position. No wonder the animal felt confused, since its hunt role, pursuing its quarry into the earth, is now redundant, what with no actual foxes being chased, as we all know. Destruction of the dog wasn't the correct solution. Attacks of that sort would be much less likely to happen if they were treated as an assault by the owner, causing actual bodily harm. As it was, the man wasn't even made to stand in the dock. The dog was simply got rid of. Even well-trained dogs are apt to poo on the beach. Doggy bags cost less than 1p each. Pickup is a knack easily learned. Any bin will do. Beaches are an important asset and need to be kept clean. Prosecuting lazy owners for despoiling them would surely do the trick without the need to ban the rest of us and our pets from our birthright for months at a time. Not that the council ever had such a thing in mind, it's now keen to stress. Likewise, some of our other open spaces where dogs may soon have to be kept on leads. Some dogs need leads to control them, others don't. A dog which runs, perhaps barking up to children or others of a nervous disposition, clearly needs to be restrained, even if it's just being friendly. But a blanket rule makes no sense at all when many pets will do as they're told. An amendment to the Public Order Act 1936 would deal with the issue perfectly. It already outlaws threatening, abusive or insulting words or behaviour whereby a breach of the peace is likely to be occasioned. Lots of us want to be able to exercise our dogs in quiet enjoyment on the island without being stigmatised by the slobbishness of the few. Dog ownership brings responsibilities. I'm perfectly willing to take the rap if I fail down on mine.
Holmesy by David Holmes. One Man Against the World. Forget regrets and don't bother to write them down. Second thoughts are a part of life, and as we grow older, the list of things for which we're truly sorry grows ever longer. Should I be unwise enough to write mine down? I fear they would barely fit on an unravelled family pack of Andrex loo roll. I'm naturally impulsive. I've never bought a car that I didn't regret between order and collection. That's why they make you pay a hefty deposit. I only regret the hurt I've caused others. Everything else I put down to experience. Don't look back, you're not going there, is my mantra. But only a fool doesn't consider past mistakes. How else do you avoid repeating them? Many of my married, now divorced, friends claim that they knew on the eve of their wedding they were making a terrible mistake. The excuse offered for going through with it is usually that a lot of money had been spent. A mate once asked me to drive his bride-to-be to the church, but on the journey she expressed serious reservations about the impending nuptials. The previous evening, rummaging around in his chest of drawers, she had discovered paperwork relating to not one, but two previous marriages that her older groom hadn't thought to mention. She did know he'd been married before, but the extra couple of brides came as quite a shock. Her decision was touch and go all the way. I became anxious, but she went ahead and the marriage lasted 20 years. He's single again now. If you think he might still be a catch, I can give you his number. If you've really struggled to get on or off the island this winter, the past 3 weekends included the image of our members of Parliament helping plant shrubs at Fishbourne Ferry Terminal might have produced profound regret and even nausea. Bob may work for you, but he does so entirely to his own satisfaction. Mostly his work seems to consist of sending out press releases welcoming announcements he had nothing to do with. Trowel in hand, on his knees, I sincerely hope he took the chance to give the ferry boss a piece of his mind, but I'm not hopeful. Perhaps Captain Bob could stand in for the essential member of staff whose sickness causes so many cancelled ferries. We still await the promised island deal, and Bob's list of actual achievements, not promises, would comfortably fit on a postage stamp. I gave up even trying to travel on Monday. Instead, I sat idly at home, zooming in on the cosy images of the Fishbourne gardening hokum. I wanted to see what species were being planted. The press release claimed they'd chosen plants that help mitigate the effect of diesel burning ferries and the fumes belching from queues of frequently delayed traffic, but it was hard to tell exactly. My own gardener's encyclopedia tells me hemlock, foxglove and nightshade absorb limited amounts of CO2, but give you terrible diarrhea if ingested. Bingo! I instantly knew which species I would have supplied for the photo op, if asked. Is it so very wrong for me to have imagined a few spores creating mild discomfort? Wightlink boasts of award-winning loos, so perhaps Bob would have welcomed the opportunity to hurriedly put them in to the test. The Fishbourne project also involved a few bird boxes, so I conjured up one further image: an enormous flock of exceptionally large seagulls flying overhead in formation, passing their own spontaneous verdict on Whitelink's service and the entire Greentosh scheme.
Wight Memories by Liam Chorley, 7 Decades Between the Sticks. Goalkeeping legend Dougie Stevens, 67, has enjoyed an illustrious footballing career and recently hit an incredible milestone, celebrating 7 decades between the sticks. Aside from his famous perm in the 80s, he's best remembered for his successes playing for East Cowes Vicks and Ryde School, but it all started when he joined Ryde Youth Club. Born in Emsworth and seen as a prospect standing at 5'10" at the age of 15, he played rugby at school on Merseyside before moving to the Isle of Wight in the winter of 1967. Shifting to football and plying his trade with Ryde, he featured in a 1-0 Cup final win in 1968, just his third match with the side, before making his senior debut for Sandown in 1969. He didn't get off to the best of starts, losing 7-1 at Christchurch, and conceded he was out of his depth. Determined to persevere, he transferred to a struggling Parkhurst old boys team and had a spell at St Helens Blue Star before enjoying a successful season with Ryde United. His exploits saw the Division 2 side sign up for East Cowes Vicks the following season, and having expected to play, at least initially, with the reserves, he soon found himself starting games when the first-choice keeper was sidelined. He played his first game away to Alton Town, losing 2-1, but held his position as first-choice keeper for a further 5 seasons. At this time, between the sticks for the Vicks, he won the Division 1 and 2 Hampshire League titles. Lauded as the invincibles of their day, having gone the entire season unbeaten in Division 1, Stevens played alongside legendary striker Tommy Grimwade and winger Gareth Williams, who went on to play for Aston Villa in the Premier League. Stevens left East Cowes Vicks and enjoyed success playing Sunday Football League with the Chillerton Choppers, where he played for 12 seasons. And during his time with the Choppers, he remarkably notched a perfect hat-trick in a 17-2 win over Bembridge, venturing into the opposition's half for corners and scoring goals with his left foot, his right foot and his head.
Playing a few games for Cowes reserves, he soon received a call from Roger North and signed for Newport. He played for the reserves for more than 2 years before being called up to the first team for the remaining 14 games and losing just 1 fixture in that period. He was later approached by Ryde Sports and they finished mid-table in his first season before emerging as a champion a year later. The side moved to Smallbrook, where Stevens enjoyed 1 more season before signing for West Wight. As well as keeping the ball out the net, he also contributed at the other end of the pitch and made history when he scored the first ever competitive goal at Smallbrook, with a huge kick from end to end against Northwood in the opening minute of the game. He later joined new team Red Star Spartans and went through successive promotions to reach Division 1. He then had another spell at East Cowes Vicks, playing for their reserves, and a spell at Wootton, before signing for Shanklin Voluntary Youth and Community Centre. Playing with a mixture of young prospects and experienced players, after 6 seasons the team withdrew from the league and Stevens returned to Sandown, coming full circle from his seniors debut in 1969. With more than 1,500 adult games under his belt and a lifetime of footballing memories, he still plays for Sandown now, for the reserves in Combination 1 of the Island League. He previously said, "I've met some really good people through playing football. If I didn't enjoy playing as much as I do, I would have given it up years ago. I was always prepared to drop down the leagues as I got older, to share my experience, but I always said when I became a liability to a team, I would pack it in. Thankfully, I haven't got to that stage yet, and I'm still wanted."
And now we go on to what's on, and I'm going to start with North Wight. There's a Sing About, the music therapy group, meeting on Thursday at 2 p.m. at St James's Church, East Cowes. And also coffee and chat mornings are held every Thursday at East Cowes Methodist Church, 10 a.m. to noon.
Over to South Wight, we have the Shanklin and District History Society will meet on Thursday, March the 5th at 7:25 p.m. at the Falcon Cross Hall in Shanklin, when Rosemary Cooper will be giving a talk titled "The Captive King, Charles I." Doors open at 7 p.m. for members and 7:15 for visitors. Richard Smout will lead a half-day course entitled "Beside the Seaside, Tourism on the Island" at St Mary's Church Hall in Brading next Saturday, March the 7th, from 1:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Cost £13.50. For more information, call 0300 303 3464. Also, Colin Beavis will give a talk entitled "An Old Photo Album at Ventnor Arts Club" on Monday. Doors and bar open at 6:30 p.m. for a 7:30 p.m. start. To reserve your seat, phone 857060 or email wendy@ventnorartsclub.com.
There's one I missed out from North Wight. This is a friendly skill sharing group which meets at Beckford Centre, Cowes. Art sessions, local history, crafts, a discussion group and photography classes take place through the week. For further information, call 294 744 and leave contact details. And now on to Central Wight. David Hurrian will give a talk entitled "Your Best Ever Gardener" on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. at Newport Parish Rooms. £6 entry, includes refreshments and a raffle. And then going on to East Wight, the AGM of Play Lane Millennium Green Trust will be held on Tuesday at 2 p.m. at Ryde Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club. All welcome to attend. Information about the green is on the website www.playlane.org.uk. And then there's Ryde Horticultural Society will meet on Wednesday at the Parish Church Hall, Queen's Road, Ryde, at 7 p.m. The speaker will be Alan Doe, whose talk is entitled "All Along the Line, the History of the Railways and Horticulture. All welcome." Also in East Wight, Holy Cross Crafts is holding its annual spring coffee morning at Holy Cross Church, Binstead, next Saturday, which is March the 7th, from 10 a.m. to noon. All welcome. A Citizen's Advice, Isle of Wight and Ride Aspire drop-in session will be held at Aspire Ride on Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 12:30. Advisors will be on hand to offer information and advice, and again, all are welcome.
Over at West Wight, there's a Women's World Day of Prayer service which will take place at St James Church, Yarmouth, next Friday, March the 6th at 10 a.m. All are welcome. West Wight Arts Association's next concert will take place next Saturday, March the 7th, at Freshwater Memorial Hall at 7 p.m. Cellist Jamal Aliyev and pianist Jams Coleman will perform a variety of classical scores. Tickets and information available at westwightarts.co.uk. A pie night in aid of Yarmouth RNLI will be held at the Bugle Coaching Inn, Yarmouth, next Saturday, March the 7th, from 7 p.m. Tickets are £15 with a £5 donation. Includes raffle and disco from 9 p.m. And to book, you need to phone 760272. And finally, the Old Museum at Fort Victoria is now open, boasting a pirate's cabin toy shop, Victorian penny arcade, steampunk gifts, fire-breathing dragon, and more between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily, and it's free entry.
And for opera lovers, the premiere of Aida at Shanklin Theatre. Opera-loving islanders are in for a rare treat with the forthcoming performance of Aida by the Russian State Opera House at Shanklin Theatre on March the 25th. Verdi's 1871 masterpiece brings ancient Egypt to the stage, telling a timeless love story to the backdrop of war. Egypt and Ethiopia are at war. Aida, the princess of Ethiopia, who has been enslaved as a handmaiden in the Egyptian royal household, falls in love with the Egyptian general Ramades, and he is besotted by her. But when Ramades is chosen by the king to lead the war with Ethiopia, Aida is left to choose between her lover or her father, and her country with devastating consequences. Producer Alexei Ignatov said, "We are constantly on the lookout for new challenges. With extensive national tours that get our productions seen the length and breadth of the country, we are able to offer audiences an unforgettable experience at a fraction of the price, all without sacrificing quality. No experience is needed to enjoy these classics. Our sets and costume designs, as well as the informative programs, make the productions very accessible and most of all enjoyable. English subtitles make it easy to follow the story as you listen to the performance, sung in its original language." Featuring an impressive cast and accompanied by a live orchestra numbering more than 30 musicians, the production has sumptuous sets and splendid costumes. Tickets are available from the box office on 8680000 or shanklintheatre.com.
Solitude and the Island focus of exhibition. An island artist will celebrate the beautiful local landscape next month with an exhibition focusing on solitude. The self-titled Lily Louise Allen Core Abbey exhibition will feature landscape art, including the body of work the artist made while on a residency in Iceland, and a selection of images from the island. Among the works on display will be the original artwork Lily created for her popular island wall calendars. Lily said, "I wanted to create a body of work to explore the feeling of solitude you can experience in certain places. I feel like the island is a wonderful place for this, and we're very lucky you don't have to search far to find it. I think islands in general have a magical quality about them. I found this especially true on my artist residency in Iceland, where the landscape is extraordinarily beautiful and wild. I will be exhibiting this work alongside the original paintings I created for my past 3 island wall calendars. I will also have new greetings cards and fine art prints for sale. The exhibition runs from Thursday, March the 5th until Tuesday, March the 10th, and will be open daily from 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at Core Abbey. Lily will be taking part in this year's Open Studios as well as several other events on the island. To see more of her work, visit lilylouiseallen.com.
And presentations from the Shanklin Theatre in March. On Monday the 2nd, we have Ben Fogle, Tales from the Wilderness, and that's at 7:30 p.m. And then on Friday the 6th, we have Joel Domet, Unapologetic, if that's okay, in brackets, and that's at 8 p.m. And then on Wednesday the 25th, as already mentioned, the Russian State Opera presents Aida at 7:30 p.m. And then Monday the 30th, First Act present Orpheus Rocks, and Tuesday the 31st, First Act present Orpheus Rocks, and that's at 6:30 p.m. and that's at the Shanklin Theatre.
There's an Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend, the 27th to the 31st of May 2020, with Nikki Isles Jazz Orchestra, Benny Goodman Quintet, Sarah Dowling Quartet, Zoe Gilby Quintet, Tony Coffey, O'Higgins and Luft, It's Trad Dad, Derek Nash Quartet, Barnes and Newton, Nigel Price, IWYJO and Pete Long, Jamie Saphir Trio, plus much, much more. Tickets on sale at the Isle of Wight County Press now, and you can check the website for more details, which is iwjazzweekend.co.uk.
And a classical concert in Freshwater. We have the cellist Jamal Aliyev and pianist James Coleman will perform pieces by Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky and Brahms at the next West Wight Arts Concert at Freshwater Memorial Hall next weekend. Jamal, who plays a 1756 Giovanni Battista Gabrieli cello on generous loan from a private individual through the Bears International Violin Society, has performed with the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra at the St Magnus Festival and at the BBC Proms. Born in Baku, Azerbaijan, Jamal studied at the Yehudi Menuhin School and at the Royal College of Music with Thomas Carroll, where he completed his Masters. His debut album, Russian Masters, has been released to critical acclaim. Yams from Anglesey in Wales performs as a soloist, chamber musician and vocal accompanist. He read music at Girton College, Cambridge, where he was also a choral scholar, and completed his Masters at the Royal Academy of Music, where he then stayed on as a fellow. The concert takes place on Saturday, March the 7th at 7 p.m, again at the Memorial Hall, Freshwater. Tickets are available from www.westwightarts.co.uk or the Totland Parish Office by calling 756028.
Beatles celebration set for Key Arts. Key Arts is marking 50 years since the Beatles' last ever recorded studio album, with a special night to celebrate. London Astrobeat Orchestra will be at the Newport venue on Saturday, March the 14th, performing a number of Abbey Road favourites and more timeless Fab Four hits. The iconic album topped the charts, giving to the world huge anthems such as Come Together, Octopus's Garden and Here Comes the Sun. The Beatles took great inspiration from the American rock and roll icons like Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry, whose sound was influenced by the blues created in the southern states of the US. The London Astrobeat Orchestra will be paying tribute to the album in their own unique Wild West African way, with the intention to take the sounds back home to their roots. Tickets are available at keyarts.org.
And more entertainment. This time, comedian Culshaw, sure to make a big impression. Impressionist, satirist and improvisational artist John Culshaw will be bringing the latest tour to the island, and the audience can suggest what gets mocked. John Culshaw's The Great British Takeoff will be coming to Newport's Medina Theatre next Friday. Culshaw's comedic impersonalizations of public and political figures make him a household name off the back of shows like Dead Ringers and 2D TV. Speaking to the county press, he said, "I never know what the audience is going to suggest when I start a show. This way, no two shows will ever be the same. They are all unique. I think the fact the show is entirely improvisational helps to make it reflect the constantly changing news of today. In that way, it keeps the comedy a lot more free to go places. Not having it nailed down means I can address what the audience wants to see, and I can do different characters every time. Impersonations are really playing the real-life characters who you are inspired by, who are always far more fun to play. I'll be letting people decide who they want to see. Donald and Boris are usually always the first that come up, but I never know where an audience's sense of humour is going to take me. When we were planning the tour, I specifically asked for Medina, as I've never been to the island before. Quite frankly, I think I've left it a bit long to have any excuses left. The island always seemed vibrant, so I just wanted to go there and take a dip and just drink the place up. I'm hoping this will be the start of many visits to the island."
And now, cinemas, we have at Cineworld Brahms' The Boy 2, which is a 15 certificate. Unaware of the terrifying history of Heelshire Mansion, a young family moves into a guest house on the estate where their young son soon makes an unsettling new friend, an eerily lifelike doll he calls Brahms. Also, Emma, Certificate U, Jane Austen's beloved comedy about finding your equal and earning your happy ending, is reimagined in this delicious new film adaptation of Emma. Handsome, clever and rich, Emma Woodhouse is a restless queen bee without rivals in her sleepy little town. Birds of Prey, Certificate 15. You ever heard the one about the cop, the songbird, the psycho and the mafia princess? Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn is a twisted tale told by Harley herself, as only Harley can tell it. Then over at Leo Leisure, the Ride Cinema, there's Sonic the Hedgehog, Certificate PG. Sonic the Hedgehog is a live-action adventure comedy based on the global blockbuster video game franchise from Sega that centres on the infamously brash, bright blue hedgehog. Also, Dolittle, Certificate U. After losing his wife 7 years earlier, the eccentric Dr. John Dolittle, famed doctor and veterinarian of Queen Victoria's England, hermits himself away behind the high walls of Dolittle Manor with only his menagerie of exotic animals for company. And finally, The Call of the Wild, Certificate PG, adapted from the beloved literary classic 20th Century Fox's The Call of the Wild, vividly brings to the screen the story of Buck, a big-hearted dog whose blissful domestic life is turned upside down during the gold rush of the 1890s. And that's all from me, Chris.
And Megan.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, the excess protein, which could be a key to one of the major causes of blindness in the UK. And who wouldn't want their sight restored? Well, not the leading character in this play, for one.
See, you're used to it. You know, your sight. But I'm not. You know, I can't stop seeing, you know, every little detail of every little thing.
Well, we hear from the playwright who thinks that you could even miss your blindness. And
hogging and blocking and cackling and squabbling. We can do better than that, can't we? So just a tad, a smidge. It's nicer, wouldn't you say? See, a little consideration goes a really long way. Remember, it's everyone's journey.
well, as part of the government's ongoing inclusive transport policies, Transport Secretary Grant Shapps is today launching the It's Everyone's Journey campaign as part of a plan to make the UK a world leader in accessible travel. And the message, everyone can help make disabled people's travelling easier. So, what will this mean for visually impaired travellers? I suggested to Grant Shapps that from my own experience and a lot of visually impaired people I talk to on this programme, the public are often very helpful. And it's more often lack of announcements on buses and trains, inconsiderately parked cars and pavement clutter, and ill-considered space-sharing schemes in city centres, which make things difficult for blind travellers. So why this campaign to put the responsibility onto the public?
So what we're doing today is actually launching effectively 3 different campaigns. One is to just help to sort of alert the public to and maybe make people a bit more recognising the issues. 1 in 4 people with disability do say that they fear perhaps the attitude of the rest of the travelling public puts them off. But the other 2 things we're doing are schemes to accredit transport providers so that they get a sort of really a bronze, silver, gold sort of accreditation type scheme that they can apply to for the quality of their accessibility. And then actually tomorrow there'll be 124 stations which will announce are actually getting upgrades. So this is a whole variety of different things, but I do think education is part of that package for visually impaired people.
You're announcing £20 million for more than 120 railway stations. What is this money to be used for?
So these are what we call the mid-scale sort of upgrades. So it could be the sort of thing that I've actually been seeing here at London Bridge this morning, which is just a section of the platform which is raised so that it's possible now just to get straight in without having that step, which causes sort of a major trip hazard for people into the train itself. So there is a very, very good example of a sort of a mid-range thing that you can do, but massively improves accessibility. But it could be a whole bunch of other things as well, including things like facilities, could be disabled loos, but also things like announcements to ensure that people know what's going on, where they should be standing, those sort of things.
Because that business about clearer announcements, it can be a real problem, and the fact that announcements often are, sometimes they're not made, sometimes trains are changed from platform to platform without letting people know. That kind of thing can really put people off.
We've got obviously a transport system, parts of which were built in Victorian times, and they just didn't put a moment's thought to these things, seemingly. And one of the things to do there is to make the trains reliable. Well, that applies all round. The other thing to do is to make sure, if you are, for example, visually impaired, that you reliably get the same messages every time, rather than you might hear a message, but on other occasions they just don't bother to play it.
There is the issue of design. On In Touch only last week, Birmingham New Street got a bit of a going over on our programme as being very difficult to navigate since its renovation. So this is an example where perhaps money had been spent, but not rightly. Now, one listener spoke for many when he said it's sad that so much was spent on the refurbishment of New Street, and yet the old New Street worked better for visually impaired people. How can you be sure the investment is going to address the right problems?
Yeah, well, I think first thing is to learn from lessons like that, to be perfectly honest. I think, nowadays it should be at the forefront of everybody's minds. The whole whole of society, including the designers, the policymakers, and everyone needs to be thinking about these things.
Can I ask you specifically about buses? Because actually more people use buses than trains, and visually impaired people use them a lot because we can't drive cars in the city. Now, the government did recently announce £2 million to encourage smaller bus companies to introduce audio equipment on the fleets. But isn't the real problem a lack of buses? Full stop. According to the Campaign for Better Transport, cuts to 3,000 bus routes, with rural areas especially hit in the last 2010 to 2018. Now that's on your watch.
Actually, much more money. 220 million initially already announced, and then £5 billion that we've just on the same day as HS2 announced is going to go into really transforming our bus services throughout the country.
But was it a mistake to let them deteriorate in this way over the last 10 years?
Well, I'll stick my neck out and say that, we were living in different times when, stopping the country from going bust seemed to be the only, austerity and all of that stuff, the deficit. But I think now is the time to build things up. We've done that bit. Now we are into making sure we have the infrastructure and the ability for people to come around. Levelling up, as we say.
The trick is not just the trains and the buses, but the getting to them. In other words, the streets. And we probably get more complaints about things like shared spaces schemes than anything else on this programme. Are local authorities being actively discouraged from going ahead with these space sharing schemes between pedestrians, cyclists and cars, because we've got the evidence that many blind people hate them, and that's what's getting them to stay out of city centres?
Yeah, I think these things are of concern, and you mentioned something before earlier, which is cars parked on pavements, and I can let your listeners know that I will be very shortly saying some more on exactly this subject, because I think that it is right that people should be able to have an expectation of being able to step outside their homes onto the pavement and being able to reasonably walk down that pavement. Now, we're some way from that, I appreciate, and I'll be saying more about it very soon.
We'll look forward to that. That's the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps. Now, FHR4. It may not be the catchiest name on the block, but it turns out that the protein which bears it can do a great deal of damage if you have too much of it. A team of scientists believe that there's now compelling evidence that high levels of FHR4 in the blood is found in people who have developed macular disease, the biggest cause of blindness in the UK. Professor Paul Bishop from the University of Manchester is part of the project's leadership team, and he told me more about their findings.
We analysed blood samples from people with age-related macular degeneration and people who didn't have it, and we found that there were increased levels of a protein called FHR4 in people who had age-related macular degeneration compared with those who didn't. What we know now is that in terms of risk of getting AMD, there can be environmental risk. Of course, we know that smoking is important, diet and being overweight, but actually genetics is also very important. And that's why we were interested in looking at this particular protein, because it related back to some earlier genetics that suggested that it could possibly be involved.
So effectively what you know is that this protein was there before people developed macular degeneration, not as a result of it.
What our supposition is that a genetic alteration caused the levels of this protein to change, and as you say, it may well be that they had changes in that level before they actually got the condition.
So what are the implications of what you've discovered?
One of the things that's interesting about it, I think, is that this protein is not actually made in the eye, it's made in the liver. And so it comes from our liver, goes into our circulation, ends up in the eye, and that's where it does damage. We know a little bit about the protein, and we know that it induces inflammation. So we've got a kind of a new type of understanding of the condition. I think that's the first thing to say. The second thing is that already we can do a certain degree of predictive testing. So just using genetic analysis, we can predict to a certain extent whether people will get the condition in the future or whether it will progress in the future, and actually doing a blood test to measure the protein rather than just looking at the genes may help us be more accurate in our predictive testing.
Now, it's one thing knowing what causes it, even if you do decide that it's definitely genetic. What will it enable you to do, particularly in terms of people who perhaps have got this condition at the moment or know that they're likely to get it?
You know, it may point the way towards new types of treatments. I'm probably thinking about treatments rather that prevent people from getting the condition, or maybe in the early stages of the condition prevent it from getting worse. And so it's possible now, with our new knowledge of the genetics and now the biochemistry, to start to design different types of treatments that may help people in the future.
That's Professor Paul Bishop. Well, the Macular Society told us that while still in its early stages, this is a promising discovery which may result in a new route of diagnosis through blood tests and could potentially lead to new treatments for patients living with age-related macular degeneration. You can hear the caution there, justified by the fact that until now, getting sight back, which has been lost, has been a very rare occurrence. Which is why when it does happen, the media is inclined to yell, "Miracle Cure." Well, that was the original title for a new television play written by blind playwright Mandy Redvers-Rowe. It's been rechristened Second Sight. It explores some unexpected consequences when the main character, Vicky, has a sight-restoring operation. Well, Mandy Redvers-Rowe has already written a radio play, Blind School, based on her experience of losing much of her own sight at the age of 16. I asked her what had made her choose this as a subject for her drama.
Well, I'm a writer, so I'm always looking for an interesting storyline. And I think one advantage I have as a writer over many other writers, not all other writers, is my direct experience of disability and in particular sight loss. So there was a few articles about people getting their sight back, and it did make me think, what would really happen? You know, is it really the solution that a lot of people think it should be?
Because at one point in the play, husband Barry says to Vicky, it's something we've always dreamt about. So I wondered, is getting back your sight something you've dreamt about?
My experience was having a lot of operations to save my sight or to restore it, and eventually none of them worked, and I lost my sight in steps sort of after that, with no option of restoration. And I think in those early days I'd been almost trained to look for or hope for sight coming back, and then there's a point at which I got to where I went, okay, that's not going to happen now. And then I moved on. And then my life got better because I allowed it to go. So no, I don't spend any time really thinking about, wouldn't life be different if I could see? But a lot of people expect me to be thinking about that.
Do you think that most people would be astonished to find that people didn't jump at the opportunity to get their sight back?
Yes. I think it's that whole thing that people with sight or sighted people just cannot understand a world without sight, and assume that lack of sight makes our life much less of an experience or an interesting experience. But of course we know it's not like that at all. We just live, we just don't think about not seeing, but we do things differently.
But when it came to getting your sight back, and given how rarely it happens, where did you get your ideas of what it would be like? For example, the idea that just having a sense of perspective would be difficult, going down steps would be difficult, that kind of thing.
Well, I just reversed losing sight. So those were all the things that became difficult when you couldn't see properly. In the same way that when I first was partially sighted, perspective did lots of tricks on me where I could see some things but not others. I thought that would similarly continue when you got sight back. So I just imagined a lot and just thought it through, that if you're not used to sight, if your brain's not used to sight, you've got to retrain everything, and it might or might not be possible to do that, but it would be suddenly a huge overload.
You went to some lengths in the play to make sure that before Vicky had her operation, she should look like a confident, happy blind person. Just tell us some of the things you did to try to make sure that, you know, for example, the actress got that who played it, because it's not played by a blind actress, is it?
No, it's Casey Ainsworth, who is absolutely amazing. As a writer, you have nothing to do with casting. You don't know who's being cast or who's being auditioned, and you have no input in that side at all.
But after she was cast, you went to some trouble for her to get it right, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So after she was cast, I was anxious that visually we showed as accurately as possible somebody who was blind and confident blind person. And so I invited her and the director. We had a whole gang of people come to my house, because most of the scenes where she's blind are in her own home. And I just explained that a blind person in their own home operates completely differently from when you're in a strange environment, you know, where you're not confident. In an environment where you are confident, you move very differently and very confidently. I thought they needed to see that. You know, we laughed a lot about it. You know, whatever I went to do, she went, I'm following you now. I'm watching everything you do.
There are some very thought-provoking moments in the play, and one that stopped me in my tracks was when Vicky, once she's had her operation and does get some sight back, makes the point that for her, the handsome man she married had aged 20 years overnight, and that came as a great shock, and indeed was a real problem for her. Was that writer's imagination?
Yes. Well, but also logic. You know, writer's imagination starting point, but then the logic is everyone else ages around you as you do, but you don't see it. So visually in my head, people I knew and I could see don't change. I can't imagine what they look like as older people.
In its own publicity, the BBC has made it clear that things don't turn out as Vicky expected, so we're not spoiling the plot by that. But one of the things that Vicky says when really it all goes a bit pear-shaped and she has to explain to Barry what the problem is, she says, I can't stop seeing, I have to see everything and it never stops. This is kind of an idea about sensory overload.
Yeah. I think if you suddenly saw everything, you wouldn't just see the pretty things, you'd see the things you don't want to see, or that are arresting in some way, or that are disturbing, and that you can't filter them out. You see everything.
You can't switch it off.
No.
And you also have her saying at one point, I miss my blindness. Now you realise a lot of people will find that really difficult to understand.
I think at that point, like her, you know, without saying too much, her life has become so complicated that she looks back to a time when it seemed a lot simpler when she was blind and she was in control.
We won't reveal any more,
No.
But are you hoping to change minds with this play?
Changing minds is a massive thing. I'm hoping to challenge people's thinking. I think that's what I would say. I'd like people to think a little bit, yeah.
Mandy Redvers Rowe, and you can see Second Sight next Tuesday afternoon on BBC One at 2:15, or on catch up whenever it suits you. And that's it for today. We welcome your comments. As you know, you can leave a voice message on 0161 836 1338. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, or you can find our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. And from there you can download tonight's and previous editions of the programme. That's it from me, Peter Wight, tonight's producer, Louise Clark-Robotham, and the team. Goodbye.
Scaffolding news for Friday, the 28th of February 2020. The list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding, hoarding, also details of skips, cranes and cherry pickers. We are unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis.
West Wight, scaffolding, Tanners, 10 High Street, Yarmouth.
Cows and East Cows, scaffolding, Cameos, 16 Bath Road Cows, 116B High Street, 21 York Street, 24 Castle Street East Cows, 128 Park Road, Cowes, and 16 Birmingham Road, Cowes, and skips at 31 Tennyson Road, Cowes.
Ventnor, scaffolding. Highlands, Bellevue Road, Old Town Hall, 1 to 12 Albert Street, Yeoman's Cottage, High Street, God's Hill, Lawson's Coach House, Pound Lane, Ventnor.
Ryde, Seaview and Bembridge. Scaffolding. Flats 31 to 36 Marymead Close, Ryde, 9 Winton Street, Ryde, Coburgs, Union Street, Ryde, 59 Union Street, Ryde, and Rockcliffe, Circular Road, Seaview. Skips, Boutique, 20 Cross Street, Ryde, 11 Horston Drive, Nettleston, High Saltons, off Ryde Road, Seaview.
Newport, scaffolding. Phones for you, 50 High Street, 146 High Street, 86A Bernard Shoes, St James Street. Cherry Picker, outside County Hall, High Street, Newport.
Sandown and Shanklin. Scaffolding, 95 to 97 High Street, Sandown, Culver Parade, Esplanade, Sandown, 95 to 97 High Street, Shanklin, Hoardings, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown, 89 Downsview Road, Sandown, and a crane at the Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown.